Oh, Daphne. So every once in a while, we have people on the show where I'm like, this would be really, really good for our audience. And I really want this guest on because they'll speak to the masses. And then there's also those times where I'm like, it'll be really good for our audience. And I personally want to talk to this person for my own benefit. And you happen to fall into both categories. So welcome to the show. I'm so excited. We are so excited. Sorry, Joe, to have you here today.
Thank you for having me. This is exciting.
Well, and before we dive into all of this and the topic at hand that I'm so excited to get into, we have an icebreaker question for you just to kind of get to know each other a little better. But it's kind of along the lines of what we're talking about today. Here's my question. What's the health or performance tip you find yourself giving friends and family at dinner parties, whether they ask for it or not?
I love going to weddings and watching people watch their plate when they're around me, as if I'm instinctually judging everything and everybody's plate. So when anybody asks, I have learned in my later years to not share if not asked upon, sort of thing. When someone has a question about food specifically, I always sort of bend back to this. Eat for joy, not for your feelings. If you eat with curiosity, if you eat with thoughtfulness or just wanting to have the experience, you're gonna be a lot more mindful about how you ingest those things, and you're gonna take your time, and you're gonna chew the food, and you're gonna have that experience. But if you're eating for your feelings, uh, a lot of times we are just taking in tons of empty calories. So eat for
Can
joy.
you tell me what that means, eating for your feelings?
Yeah, I mean, this is probably a standard thing, but eating your feelings is a lot of times when we're bored, when we're sad, when we're stressed, we start ingesting unnecessary calories because it is our body, our nervous system trying to fill that discomfort, feel the even just feel that gap. Sometimes when we are at a dinner party, often we find ourselves drinking a little extra, eating a little extra because it's something to do with our mouth and hands, right? It suffices that oral fixation and keeps us from feeling awkward. So if you're feeling stressed, if you're feeling anxious and not necessarily hungry or curious about what you're eating, yeah, always choose joy over your feelings.
That is such good advice. Yeah, I love that. It's funny when you're talking about like at a wedding and people are nervous around their plate.
Yes.
A friend of mine's a dermatologist, and when I go meet her at a park or something with our kids, I put on the long sleeve SPF shirt,
Yes.
hat, and my husband's always like, are you going to see your buddy? Because you never dress like this unless you're going
You don't
out."
you don't wanna be judged or monitored. You're like, I'm taking care of my skin." Yes, exactly.
And then if you knew somebody that was like an MS doctor, you'd be like the other way around because you need the vitamin D to avoid getting multiple sclerosis. So
Speaking
there's that.
Well, so we might have some listeners right now. They've heard the intro, but they may also be like, "All right, we're talking about eating well at weddings and covering your arms. I'm a solopreneur. What the heck are you guys talking about?
Well,
And why
you're
are
a
we going?"
human being first, yes. But yes, exactly, yeah.
It's called an icebreaker question,
Oh, sorry.
folks. But it ties into everything because as a solopreneur, you are your business, and the thing you need to take care of the most before you can take care of the business is yourself. And you have to make sure that you are firing on all cylinders before your business can fire on all cylinders, which Daphne is why you are here today to help a person do that. You talk about a whole person approach to health and performance. So, for solopreneurs who are used to grinding through their to do lists, what does that actually mean in practice and why does it matter for their bottom line, even?
Ugh, when I say whole person, because I know sometimes we get a little overwhelmed with the holistic mindfulness sort of thing, and I think it kinda loses its efficacy in that way. When I say whole body, I'm really when I'm working with clients, I'm talking about their physical fitness, right? Their body. I'm talking about their nervous system, right? And I'm talking about their mindset or their mental fitness. So when we say whole body or as a solopreneur, you need to be very healthy at every level and being very aware of how you're treating yourself in all of those capacities. So when I say that, yeah, maybe you got your workout in, maybe that sort of thing, but you're also not paying attention to who you're hiring, right? And how they're energy is affecting your ability to move forward, or picking a vendor, or even just stacking your schedule. I mean, sometimes we fall into the productivity trap, which is something I talk about a lot, where as solopreneurs, we are constantly trying to bill every hour, and we're trying to max capacity, like we're optimizing ourselves instead of our business.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And my brain is going in a million different directions. I have so many
Yes.
questions for you, and I'm like, okay, Carly, pick one. Okay, so you've said that the nervous system is just as important as the physical and mental game. Can you kind of break that down for someone who's never thought about it really? Like, what's happening in the body of a stressed out solopreneur, and how does that actually sabotage performance?
Well, let me explain the nervous system. I think we all have sort of an idea about a system is something inside of our body, which is absolutely true. But the nervous system at large is a security system. It's a response system that lives in our body, but it's predominantly affected by our environment. And that means our relationships. That means our physical environment, our geography. It also means what sort of stimuluses are calling to us. And the reason that the nervous system is so important to consider is because a lot of times, a lot of the mental energy or the physical energy we have during the day is lost when we're already starting the day expecting a problem or constantly dealing with repetitive issues in our business. So the nervous system is really important because it's there to armor us up, but it's also taking 30% of our energy throughout the day. So if we're starting the day at a loss because we're not in a productive mindset, we're not in a productive environment or relationship with the people we're working with, that's something we really need to consider too in our business.
Yeah, and again, it's so interesting to me because when people talk about their business, they are focusing on their business and not themselves as they relate to the business. So I think it's really good to have that background knowledge. So, Daphne, you have trained over 700 CEOs, executives, the list goes on, and solopreneurs are CEOs and executives. What is the most consistent difference you see between the ones who thrive and whose businesses thrive and the ones who plateau? I mean, sometimes people think it's a learned thing or I can't say that, an innate
Yeah.
thing that can what you've observed be learned.
I think there's a real difference in solopreneurship is because you are the main product, right? In some ways. And for a lot of people, it's hard to step out of working in your business as opposed to working for your business, if that makes sense. So when you're a solopreneur, but you don't have a lot of support, right? You don't have a big team, you don't have a lot of extra help, you end up spending most of your day working in your business as opposed to on your business. And so I think the big difference in the advice I've given in a lot of capacity is when I see someone in the problem, working the problem all the time, as opposed to finding somebody whose actual strong suit or their genius is in that specific area, it's a lot of conversations with them, recognizing that they probably could do this task. They probably could handle this thing on their own, but how much more would they gain if they brought in the right person? So it's really tough to do. It's hard to let go of the reins. And whether it's a CEO or it is a mid-tier business, wearing the same hat and actually thinking in that same way, instead of being the CEO, you're being the middle manager, right? So when you can find somebody else to bring onto your team to sort of handle that specific area, you really set yourself apart.
We go on about this all the time of outsourcing, finding those things that you don't have to do,
Yeah.
so you can put your energy into the things where you're adding the most value to the business or the best quality to your life. And so cool. We're of the same mind here,
Yeah.
which is always awesome.
It's an investment, right? And if you think about it that way, it doesn't feel like a cost or a line item, because if it's an investment, you're bringing somebody in, you're exponentially seeing where that potential could go. So that's awesome.
Not not on this show, but in other shows.
Yes.
Sometimes there are people that speak and it's kind of a do as I say, not as I do scenario where they're like preaching at people and they're like, you need to do this, you need to do this, but they don't do that. And it's infuriating and it's very clear when that happens. And so there may be people right now, they're like, Daffy, this all sounds great, but I've gone through this, I've gone through this. It's impossible to do this with this circumstance and excuse, excuse, excuse. And you're like, hmm, hold my beer or whatever you want to
Yeah,
hold.
it was like,
And
cold my
because
coffee.
you have navigated COVID, you had years of IVF treatments and a first pregnancy while expanding your practice. So in terms of curveballs and excuses that could deter you from building your business, you've experienced them. So you are not one of those people that just talk about it but don't actually do it. How did you keep the business moving during what sounds like these are crazy seasons of your life? And what did they teach you they about resilience and what you talk to your clients about today?
This is a question, and this is actually something I find really consistent with my clients. Um, Many CEOs, especially women, are also athletes early on in their development, and this athlete's mindset, I talk about this quite a bit, is really interesting. Is like when the chips are down, right? The average person sort of just shrinks, right? And decides, what is the easiest path? What's the quickest way? How do I shortcut this and still get by? And I've always sort of taken on this mindset that when a challenge hits me, that's when I personally decide this is the time to double down. And I think as a solopreneur, especially early on, I realize that the greatest investment I can ever make is in me. And I think that's really hard for some people to see themselves as the initiator and something that deserves an investment. So what happened in every case, whenever something sort of set me back or actually caused me to say, "Gosh, wow, where's this gonna come from? How am I gonna do this next?" When it was an IVF, when it was constant failed IVF, I really had the mindset where I was like, "Listen, I cannot be the only person that I'm working with or that I know in this realm that doesn't have an answer for why this isn't working. So this is the time for me to expand my knowledge." So for me, it was always the curiosity of why isn't this working and not just accepting the outcome, saying, okay, well, now I think I need to dig deeper and find another certifying body or another expert in this that I can learn from. When it came to COVID, the that was another big, huge chapter for me, and the fact that I was working with these people at a physical level often, and there's always a coaching element to what you do. We're supporting them and their relationships and their work, but during COVID, people became very isolated and not in a very healthy way. In fact, a lot of my clients, because I had to move my entire practice virtually, I was recognizing that I might have been the only person that they were seeing on a regular basis. And I realized that the demand for the sort of health support they needed wasn't something that I had available to give them, or at least I felt comfortable. So what I did is I went back and entered a graduate program that was being offered virtually at American University so that I could actually expand my leadership and my CEO skills to give people a broader range of support. So every time the world or circumstances sort of handed me a bag of, what are you going to do next? I was like, I'm going to double down on me.
Remember how I was like, sometimes I want people on for the general audience, and sometimes it's self-serving. So, Joe, I'm going to pivot really quick and ask a question that I think will apply to a lot of our audience. But I conversations that I have with friends of mine, I feel like women and specifically moms have a hard time investing in themselves when they are giving to their kids, their spouses, their careers. Like it feels like you're being pulled a million different directions. And a lot of times, the things that fall by the wayside are prioritizing physical, mental health, self development. Am I wrong in saying is that
Can
a
I, can I add, just for having observed my wife in that role,
Yes.
food, sleep.
Yes. Yes.
okay? So it's not just me. This is a blanket thing, right? Okay, so you are doing actually specific work to close the critical gaps in women's health. What are those gaps, and why do they matter for professional performance? And why do you think industries across the board have kind of ignored them until now? I'm starting to see more and more of it being addressed, but I'd love your take.
I mean, and the representation is changing, obviously, in the C-suites, in the professional environment anyway. Women are recognizing that they have this calling to stay in their careers, to still be part of the workforce in a lot of capacities. So the entire, I mean, the landscape is shifting entirely. The big gaps that we're seeing right now are the support as it comes to pregnancy, and even IVF and things like that, because it does change, and there are a number of things health related that occur during those cycles. I'm glad I'm not going back to this now. But also during pregnancy and how you're supported in your work. So what I'm noticing when I'm working is the biggest gaps are postpartum and later. We don't always know the difference between postpartum and perimenopause because a lot of us are having babies later, right? So we're choosing to have children later. We are older in our career because a lot of women don't make it partner until later because there is still this gap. There is still this consideration that a lot of places do not, or a lot of firms don't choose female associates until later because they're not sure that this is going to be a productive match, right? It's really it's tough and it's hard to say it, but it is the truth. So we are choosing to push back our fertility, right, or to our childbearing years, which really butts up against postpartum and perimenopause. And a lot of times in the health frame, right? So when I'm working with people in that age range, it's hard to know when the symptoms are one or the other. So in that's one of the biggest gaps that I'm working with right now is we're having joint pain, we're having different symptoms coming up, and we're not just talking hot flashes or things of that nature. There are actual big biological changes. And as a mom, when you come back after you've invented a person and pushed them out of your body in any means possible, your brain actually changes at a physiological level, so you're never going back to your job as the same person, right? So everyone's like, "Oh, I gotta bounce back. I have to bounce back." But the truth is you can't. Your brain has actually rewired itself. So a lot of times we have this concern that when we bounce back that we're having brain fog and things of that nature, which is really the reality that our brain has done some serious pruning. So no, you don't need to remember who your 3rd grade math teacher was anymore, and it's so hard for you to remember. It was so easy and available to before because your brain did this incredible thing of pruning out things that didn't keep your now spawn, right? Your child alive. So I think it's really hard because we think we're coming back to the workforce, we're coming back to work with the same capacity, brain function, and it's not that it's wrong. It's not that our brain is broken. It is literally pruned differently, and we start functioning and operating differently, and that's sometimes uncomfortable for the people we're working around too.
Yeah, and just I mean, for the women listening who might relate to this, for me, it also is a reminder to contract with the right people who
Yes.
understand and who are supportive. And because nobody, solopreneurs don't have employees, but we, like Joe said, we do contract with many, many people. And Joe, I mean, I just have to sing your praises. Joe is the shining star for supporting women in the workforce, supporting like work-life harmony. We changed it from balance to harmony like yesterday. um,
On yesterday's podcast.
Yesterday's podcast.
Love
But
it.
he is the most like with my second, I had to leave earlier and my out of office doc wasn't ready. And Joe was just like, who cares? Like, I
Get up.
will figure
Get
it
out.
out. Like
Yeah.
you're just the best of the best of the best, Joe. I cannot sing your praises enough. And I think that's just very telling that when you're a woman in the workforce, contract with people who get
Yeah.
it and who
Yeah.
support you. Um, because I have been fortunate enough to be with you for so long now, Joe, that you just get it. And I don't think people appreciate those kind of people enough.
It's
And
okay to let go of things that don't work anymore, right? And I think that's a struggle we have as women is we think we need to go back and be in the same spot and start over and, it's okay to let go. If a relationship's not working or someone doesn't understand that, it's okay to let go.
yeah, this conversation took a turn in a different direction than I thought, but I like it. I think a lot of people need to hear these kinds of things, and it makes people not feel so isolated when they're already feeling isolated as a solopreneur. It might help put things in perspective why they're feeling a certain way, why things feel different. But going back to Joe, we'll rope you back in the conversation.
It's
Sorry,
okay.
Joe.
It's all right. I'll just keep complimenting me. I'll just
Yeah,
sit here and
I will sing your praises all day, every day. You know that. You know
Joe, blue is definitely your color. Okay.
that. Joe, your eyes today, they're just glowing. Your skin is glowing. But
if for you can we can fool the people that aren't on YouTube.
Oh,
so listeners. Well, okay, so circling back, so we're talking about like how health is so important, such an integral part of a successful business. But a lot of solopreneurs see their health as something that they'll get to, quote unquote, when things slow down, right? What would you tell someone who keeps putting it off? Because what is the real cost for not only themselves, but also their business if they keep pushing it?
I think that's the biggest question is like, what are you leaving on the table, right? If you were in better health, how much more productive would you be? So if you reverse engineer that question, because that's usually where I start with people is, I don't know if I can fit it in. I don't know if I can fit it in. I'm like, well, it's not a priority if you're fitting it in. So if your priority is to be healthy, you make that first, right? You put that out and you make that very obvious. And that is, I know this is hard to say and hard to hear if you're a mom sometimes. It's just a decision I had to make. And not even as a fitness professional, but as somebody who recognized that my body went through some incredible, incredible things and incredibly taxing things that if I want to keep showing up in a healthy way, even to my family, even to my friends, to my community, especially my business, if I wanna show up healthy in the best possible version, if I wanna give the best product to my clients, then health has to be the first thing on my plate. It can't be the last.
Well, so what if there's a solopreneur listening right now? We actually just talked to one of our community members who's in complete burnout mode, and
Eh,
she's just like taking a break. And we hear not from us, but like not burnout from Lifestar, but just burnout from her business. And there are so many people that are already like underwater with work. They are stressed out. They're burnt out, and they know they need to prioritize their health, but they just don't see a way to do that. What would you say the first step should be that they should take to start improvements so they can better themselves in their business?
This is gonna sound like the hardest thing for someone in that spot to hear, but they need to create time in their schedule. And what I mean by that is really start looking at what are they doing that's necessary, what's moving them forward, or what's busy work. Busy work
doom
some
scrolling.
Right, exactly. I was like, it's funny, but like if I have definitely on occasion sat with a client and said, "Draw me your clock." And it's like, "What do you mean?" "Draw me your clock. In a 24-hour day cycle, what is the wedge? Where are you putting your time? And let's see what happens and what's your biggest investment." It is surprising how much busy you put into your day, and I've said this before, busy is an illusion. Busy is something you have decided, and busy is basically saying everything else is not a priority. So when you shift your priorities and say, "I want to show up in my business this way. I wanna grow my business. I wanna feel healthier," all those busy things that we created in our brain can make way.
I have a question, Daphne. I read
Please.
an article a while back, and you know more about this than I do for sure. And I can't remember if it might have been the New York Times. It was a reliable source at least. And they were talking about the fact that there's some evidence now that just a really brief spell of intense exercise, like 4 minutes
Mhm.
of really working up a sweat is like a lot better than nothing.
Absolutely. Anytime you're showing up, it doesn't I think that's one of the bars to entry for a lot of people. Even to what you're saying, a 20-minute walk can improve your productivity exponentially during the day. You don't need special equipment. You could literally slip on a pair of sneakers with your business suit. And I say that a lot of times to my clients who, "I can't get this in. I can't do the cardio today I wanted to do." I'm like, "I don't care. What's your space between the next 2 meetings?" 15 minutes. Great. Put your shoes on. Go. It's one of those things where most of these meetings are virtual for them. Like, no one knows if you reapplied your deodorant. Just go. And I think it's one of those things where if your priority is to be healthy, if your priority is to, and I think that's the trap in it. Can I say this? I know this probably isn't we think we need to be healthy. We don't believe we need to be healthy. We think. And what I mean by that is that it becomes a checklist. It just becomes one more thing to do as opposed to something that you are dynamically committed to. Because when you think healthy, most people are thinking skinny. They're thinking how other people perceive them as opposed to how they feel strong in their own body. So when we make that shift, especially with clients, and say, this is about you feeling strong, not about how other people perceive you, it makes this dynamic shift because then all of a sudden they're like, yeah, I want to feel stronger. Yeah, I want more energy in my body. Yeah, I want to be clearer with my thoughts. Then a 15-minute walk doesn't feel like such a big push.
Everybody should get a dog.
Okay. Okay.
Because you got to walk the dog.
That's right. That's,
You know?
yeah.
And you meet people, especially if it's a cute dog.
Oh, yeah.
You meet other people. So that's healthy too. But
Yes.
I have a question on this because here's me. Okay. Sunday, 30-mile bike ride, hilly bike ride.
Love it.
Monday, barely able to go up and down the stairs.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday, no, I shouldn't say. I went for a short walk with the dog.
Yeah.
Yesterday, little bit of weightlifting. But what I'm saying to you is I do little bits and then I do these ridiculous things, not ridiculous, but big things.
Yeah.
And would I be better off being more measured and balanced, or is the crazy, not crazy, but intense and then kind of taking it a little easier approach healthy in your opinion?
Can I ask a bigger question?
Sure.
Why do you work out?
Well, I honestly like feeling good.
Okay.
And my afternoons are, I will fall asleep at the keyboard at 3, 4 o'clock. And so I go out and walk the dog or move some weights around or whatever.
Yeah.
Unless they can do a meeting at that time.
Yes.
That's right. Yeah.
We're 2 hours apart.
This is what I'm talking about. If your intention is to feel strong in your body, to continue to push yourself, no matter what you're doing, there's an exponential benefits. If a 30-mile bike ride is a push for you mentally, physically, and gives you clarity and a balanced nervous system, get it, right? But it's not reasonable for you to do 30 miles every single day, right? So the fact that you are technically, whether you know this or not, you are cross-training, which is, as we've learned, is very vital to longevity.
Oh, cool.
The most important thing you can do is work out with a purpose. And what I mean by that is work out for you, not for the people around you. And if you're doing that, if you are connecting physically, mentally, and your nervous system is getting that reset, yeah, if cross training is exactly how we refer to it. So you're doing a multiple of different things, keeping your body resilient, right, in different ways, because it is the people who do the same exercise every single day that usually break down the fastest. So when I marathon train, I run 4 days a week. There are so many schools of marathon training where you run every day, and this is it. Wrong. Zero wrong. I will fight anybody any single day. I've got a Boston Marathon jersey on my wall to prove that. Take that.
You really should have had Stacy on this podcast and not me.
I know.
Our community manager, Lifestar community manager,
Nice.
has done Boston a bunch of times and Marine Corps and all kinds of
Awesome.
yeah.
And here's
Doing the Great Wall, yeah.
Oh, she and I should hang out later. That'd be fun. But here's the thing. I run 4 days a week when I marathon train, and I'm very specific. So there's one distance day, as any marathoner will know. There's a distance day where you gain distance, right? And you start building that into your program. But otherwise, I'm running 1 day for speed. I'm running 1 day at pace. I'm running 1 day with a goal in mind. Maybe it's incline training, whatever it is. I'm not running every single day because I'm smart enough to know that cross training and giving my body adequate rest in between makes me a bulletproof athlete.
So inspiring. And Joe, cross training, you're so trendy.
Yeah, you're
I
cross
didn't even
training.
know.
Go. Yes.
I had no idea.
So trendy. I have so many questions that I could be asking, but to respect your time, we'll start winding the show down. We end every episode asking our guests the same question. So we want to know, what is your favorite quote about success?
Ooh, luckily you gave me a little bit of heads up on this one because I am not a quote person, but I do remember early on in having a conversation with another solopreneur, actually. And she and I sort of talked in depth, and she's a very philosophical person. So when she and I shared this together, I was like, you know what? I need to share this with Carly and Joe. Can I read it to you though? So I don't. Yeah.
Please.
Okay. All right. So when health is absent, wisdom cannot reveal itself. Art cannot manifest. Strength cannot fight. Wealth becomes useless, and intelligence cannot be implied. So if you are not starting foundationally at how you feel, how you move, and how you connect with the world around you, no amount of money in the world is going to matter if you're in bad health.
Daphne, I think you and I are on the same age. I like when I hear stuff like that, I have the more you know rainbow from like across the screen.
Yes. Yes.
Yep. Okay, got it. I love that. Yeah, I was paying such close attention to each phrase and it just all makes so much sense. So thank you for that. Well, if people want to learn more about you, your business, anything, where can they find you? Give us all the links.
So the work that my team and I are doing, our website is Lift, Lift, Pro Wellness. And that's really just to understand a little bit about how we are helping the C-suite and the professionals and sort of working those three areas, both the physiology, the mindset, and the nervous system to be at full performance. And so it's really important. There's also a quiz up there. So if you're actually kind of back and forth, not sure how to get started or what's sort of standing in your way, you don't have to be a CEO to do this. But if you're a solopreneur, you are a CEO. So jump in. There is a actual quiz. It's a 2-minute quiz that just gives you a place of where should I get started? Where should I focus my attention? Because I think that's the biggest blockade for a lot of people. So that's that one. I actually have a podcast of my own that I started late last fall in sort of tandem with this work that I've been doing for 20 years. And it is a podcast that just encourages people to not focus on being skinny or fitting into things, but to not fucking shrink. And I can spell that for you. So it's don't F asterisk KN Shrink podcast. So we really have a lot of fun having women's health conversations and about being your most productive and performance-based self.
Love it. Well, so, so awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you.
And listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. As always, leave that 5-star review. It helps us spread the word to other solopreneurs leading a life first business. And I think what we talked about today would be so helpful for our audience. So please do that. Share this episode with a friend or fellow solopreneur and subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast platform, including YouTube. And we'll see you next time on The Aspiring Solopreneur.